Was there a point or incident that changed it for you? This is from Praveen Shankam. I think there were multiple incidents that kind of were recurring. I wouldn't say changed it for me, but that kept kind of affecting me in some way or the other in hindsight. Obviously, when you're 6, 7, you're looked at as this chubby, cute little kid, but then by the time you hit 15, 16, it's probably not as cute as it used to be when you were 7. And I've been on television for a long time now, being raised in Vancouver. I was somewhat of a prodigy there, which I find a little funny now. But being on television at that age, everybody accepts you the way you are, obviously because they've seen you grow, right? But then I did realize that probably when I hit around 15, 16, I'd overhear a lot of my contemporaries kind of criticizing how I looked. And I do remember not ever paying heed to it. And I remember I couldn't care less because I came from a family where the school of thought was that people respect you for your art and for your talent and not for how you look. So with that in mind, I don't think it ever affected me then. But there was this other anecdote, which I'm going to tell you right now, which is, it sounds really funny today, but at that time I was traumatized, which kind of had me bring about that change in myself that was more in terms of adopting a healthier lifestyle and becoming a better, healthier version of myself. There's this one time my family, along with my uncle's family, decided to go to the PNE in Vancouver. And the PNE is basically, it's like a little amusement park thingy that they put up during the fall when we're on our summer vacations back home. So there was this little activity there, per se, where there were 2 rods and you literally had to lift your legs and you had to do like a flip. And you were suspended midair holding those 2 rods. My cousins, who are all younger to me, they are blessed with an incredible metabolism, and they could eat 6 plates of rice and not gain, a quarter of an inch, and I could probably inhale 3 extra whiffs of air and gain 6 kilos. My cousins went on to do that little rod flip thingy, and they're tiny. We're just like a few years apart, but they're like that. So they went and they flew through. My uncle saw them and he's like, okay, I want to do this too. So my uncle goes on those 2 rods and he does a flip multiple times and flying colors. While my parents, who did not try it by the way, they stood there cheering everybody on. And then they're like, okay, so Garbe, my name is Rita. So my parents are like, Acha, your turn, let's see you do this. So I hold the 2 rods and I'm kicking my legs while I'm suspended midair, and while I hung there like a fool, my parents kind of went from this to this, and I was hanging there kicking my feet midair and I could not move. I think the nicest people there at the time were the silent spectators, mere strangers who kept, giving me a thumbs up and being like, you can do it! I could not do it. And I think at that point I realized that I had no control over my body weight. And that, my friends, is where I decided to kind of push myself and become a healthier version of myself. Get into my ideal body mass index range and lose those severe extra kilos that I had on me that kept me in moto for years. Rupa Tilak says, great inspiration indeed. Did you lose weight only because others body shamed you or for your personal confidence? How did weight loss help you in life? I wouldn't say I wasn't confident when I was younger. I think I was far more confident at 80 kilos than I am at 51 kilos. Obviously, I mean, there has been scarring that's happened when you hear certain remarks about your appearance. And I think I've been very self-critical, and I continue to be that. Maybe it's a Capricorn thing, I don't know. But because the camera is something that we deal with almost every day, be it music video shoots, be it being the face of, say, a magazine, or being the face of a product, or a collaboration, or on television, videos that we're shooting just like this, although this is more personal. But when you're consistently in front of the camera, I think you're just, at least a person like me, is a little more mindful of how what I'm wearing, it kind of appears in totality. And there would be a lot of times where, the camera would kind of come on me and I'd notice like this chunk of flab, side fat, and through something I was wearing. And so being self-critical, it would be more about how I appear in my eyes than anybody else. We all evolve, and it was more about being more presentable. That is one component of it, but if it's more on a personal level, for me, comfort is king. So you'll still see me in my signature ponytail, as my friends like to call it, and you'll see me in my tights and my loose-fitting t-shirt, but I make it a point that I feel comfortable in them, that they fit. I was very comfortable at 81. I'm still very comfortable, but I am healthier. So I just feel fitter. I feel stronger. I can do that flip now, suspended midair with my feet dangling and the whole of Vancouver watching. That makes me confident. And to be able to wear things that I couldn't wear for the longest time, that makes me confident. So I think it's a very personal thing. I feel it's really important to treat your body with respect, and your body's like a machine. I mean, it requires maintenance, it requires the right kind of fuel, and these are the things that I took into consideration when I was losing weight. So, Aditi Modi writes, what an inspirational story. Please share all the details as in food habits and exercise. This is truly amazing transformation. Thank you. The Devil Dentist also says, what was your food and exercise during the journey to fitness? So I'm probably going to do a more elaborative take on this, but I think I'll point out the top 3 things that I followed when I just begun my journey towards weight loss and inch loss. First off, I do not eat anything after 9 p.m. and 9 p.m. tops. I mean, usually I end up having my dinner by 7:38. And then I'll directly have a heavy brunch at around 12 noon the next day. So basically you're looking at around 15 hours of no food. Nowadays we call it intermittent fasting, but this is something that I did end up following when I just begun my weight loss journey. That is number 1. Number 2, balanced diet. So I made sure that I incorporated, I'm vegetarian, so vegetarian proteins, lots of fruit, lots of leafy greens and fresh vegetables, lots of seasonal fruits and vegetables. Again, that's something that, they wouldn't be artificially cultivated for the most of it. Lots of whole grains and healthy fats. So you're looking at olive oil, you're looking at avocado, that's my favorite, and just a really, really nutritional, balanced diet. And the final thing that I followed was basic exercise. I didn't hit the gym ever, but what I did end up following was 30 minutes of proper exercise. So for me, it was stretching. I've been a swimmer all my life, so when I do get a chance to swim, I try and swim. When not, then I do my basic stretches along with jogging. So for those of you who've seen me doing my 3 a.m. jogs, this is what it is. Nandini Sitaraman, how was it to overcome those criticisms? How would you react or handle those? That's a beautiful question. So the thing is that for the longest time, it really didn't matter. I mean, like I said, I came from that school of thought where my parents would teach me that it's your talent and it's your art above how you look. So I couldn't care less. I mean, I was pretty confident at 81 kilos, 80 kilos, something around there. But I'm not gonna lie, after a certain point, when I started going out and meeting a lot more of my contemporaries, and I would often hear these snide remarks or comments in the passing, and I think it was at that point that I started wishing that I were a little more thick-skinned than I would wish to be, and they would be very hurtful, especially when you would hear people say that, no amount of makeup could fix her face. I think things like that, they do damage you, and again, not gonna lie, those things still affect me to the point that a lot of times when I'm offered to be the face of a magazine, or if I'm offered to host a television show, or if I'm offered to be the face of a music video or something, there's always that cynicism there that, are you mocking me? And so it does scar you. But having said that, I think at that time what I ended up doing was I would weigh what I'm genetically endowed with. I can't naturally change my nose, I can't change my smile, I can't change my eyes, can't change my jawline, cheekbones, whatever, versus what I do have a degree of control over, which is the extra inches. I think my focus at that point was obviously not about something that I had no control over, but entering that ideal bossy mass index, entering that ideal body mass index range. The way of dealing with that criticism was more about self-growth, and it was more about just becoming a healthier version of myself. The competition was me. I would like to add here that when you do end up losing that kind of weight, I mean, I ended up losing around 45 pounds or something, around 25 kilos, something like that. You can do the math. What ends up happening in that situation is that when that extra fat kind of melts away from your face and your body, your actual bone structure kind of comes to the fore. The jawline, the cheekbones they protrude a bit more. And so your face in a way does go through something that I like to term as a natural plastic surgery per se. So I think you do end up changing your face and your facial features that way, and which is au natural. It's very important to feel comfortable in your own skin. What I do is that I obviously have massive self-esteem issues based upon the kind of scarring that's happened growing up when things actually did start kind of affecting me. But faking it till I make it, faking confidence in myself is something that I do every time I step out of the house, and that is something that does wonders. The best way to deal with this kind of criticism has been being the change. I love this question. Ma'am, can you elaborate on lifestyle changes you incorporated? Maybe make a video on it. It would be really helpful. Absolutely. This is a really, really long answer. Not that the others were any shorter. I'm just going to point out a few things that I kind of started, those little changes that I made in my lifestyle. And the weight loss has been it's been a very gradual process. But having said that, I did end up losing quite a bit of weight in a relatively shorter amount of time, probably because I was consistent. Also for me, it wasn't about just losing a whole notch of weight in a very small amount of time. It was, like I've mentioned multiple times, it was about a lifestyle change. And so a couple of things that I followed were, number one, I would start keeping a 3 to 4 hour gap between my last meal of the day and when I would sleep. I was studying. I was on 7 scholarships. The condition on which I would retain those scholarships was that I maintained my GPA. And so the pressure was real. I mean, there would literally be, like, my life was basically me sitting at my desk and eating there and studying and eating there and studying and eating whatever my mother got me. And we come from a North Indian family, right? So there's all that makhan and there's all that ghee and then there's all those paranthas and there's all of that. So, which, I mean, obviously my mother reads a lot and she brought about that change in my entire family's diet over time. I was leading a very sedentary lifestyle. You're tired and you're hungry, so what do you choose? I would choose both. I would eat and then I would go to bed. And that is the worst form of abuse I may have done to my body. So I ensured that I kept that gap between my meal and the time I went to bed. And then I would keep a considerable gap. Obviously those 6 hours of sleep or 8 hours of sleep, which I never got at the time, but then I would just maintain that 8 hour gap plus the 4 hour gap between the next meal that I would have. Coming to the eating part, I started maintaining a very balanced diet. And that's something my entire family kind of embraced. We are vegetarians. By birth, I've been a vegetarian. And so a balanced diet would be all the 4 food groups. I guess it's 5 now, but this is something we were raised with as well. Back in school, we were taught that your diet should incorporate these 4 food groups. So I would make sure I was getting all my protein, vegetarian sources, dals and tofu, soy milk. I think that was predominantly it. I've just started eating eggs now. My mother's gonna kill me if she sees me say this. But those are the things that we used to have at the time. And then of course, lots of leafy greens and vegetables, lots of fruit. They say you should have 4 to 5 servings of fruit every day. I wouldn't have that much, but I would still incorporate fruit into my diet. I'd have things like oats in the morning. I'd have dairy. You have yogurt, cheese, milk, things like that at the time. And then there was whole grains and healthy fats. So you have your dry fruits, again in moderation, but a balanced diet. So this is something that I used to follow. I completely cut whites after a certain point. I completely stopped refined flour in any way, shape, and form. Maybe a bite out of dessert, but I do have a massive sweet tooth, where I'll get to my next point. But less salt, less sugar, if not eradicating it in its entirety. No rice. I can't have rice anyways. Milk mostly. Wouldn't have cheese. Again, everything in moderation. I do love cheese and I do love milk in my coffee and my tea, but again, less of that. But I reduced all of this, and certain things I completely eliminated from my diet. After I was down around 10-15 kilos, I would eat anything that I wanted. If I wanted pizza, I'd eat pizza. If I wanted pasta, I'd eat pasta. Anything, if I wanted cheesecake and meringue cake, I would have that. But everything was in moderation. So initially we would hog down a bowl of pasta, or we'd have 2-3 slices of pizza. At this point, I would chop that pizza into 4 parts and have a small piece. So what would happen is that it would satiate the foodie in me, and at the same time I would not feel deprived to go and binge one day and screw it all up. Massive sweet tooth. I have something sweet every day. I'm not proud of it, but I have it in moderation, so that's something I do pat myself on the back for. Obviously, I would read the ingredients on the carton. Trans fats, calories, very less processed foods, lots of superfoods in my diet, quinoa, foxnuts, arugula, rocket leaves. So I would incorporate all of these things into my diet more now than at the time. But again, you keep reading, you keep making changes, dietary changes. So those are things that I used to do. And then there would be phases where I would binge. So I would, Christmas time, or my birthday, which is around Christmas time. Diwali, you've got the sweets coming in. So at those times I would indulge, but then those would be certain phases, and they would be followed by me coming back to my regime. I completely eliminated deep fried food initially, and then afterwards, when I did feel that craving, again, just like a small bite to satiate that foodie, like I said. How something has been cooked, the way you cook food is so important. All of these things. And then, of course, moderate exercise, just brisk walking, skipping, swimming is something. I'm a water baby. I've been swimming since I was 2. So whenever I get a clean pool, I would jump in, and that's great for toning your body, for burning those extra calories. And in Canada, it was easier for me to do that with a community center like right next door. But over here, for those of you who've seen me doing my 3 a.m., 4 a.m. jogs, that's what it is, that's what I'm doing. And if I don't have access to something, I've never hit the gym, but I use my own body weight to kind of tone myself if I need to. But again, very moderate stuff, guys. I'm not out there trying to become Hulk, but I think I just try and stay healthy, and I try and maintain a healthy lifestyle and diet. And these are some of the changes that I have made. And sleep is really important, so do that. Lots of water. And I'm gonna add one more thing here. A lot of times we feel like we're hungry, but we're actually just dehydrated. So what I would do is that when I felt the need to eat, I would drink a glass of water, and I'd realize that even a half hour after having had that glass of water, I still would not feel hungry. And so I realized that my body was just dehydrated. And I think that's where you end up saving a lot of calories. So these are just a few things that I followed, and there's so much more, which I shall enlighten you with in, say, a part B. I would like to say that for me, it was more about a lifestyle change. I wanted to be healthier. I wanted to eat healthier. I wanted to live healthier. I wanted to look healthier, and I wanted to feel healthier and stronger. So it was a personal goal, and I'm glad that I got the criticism that I did that kind of pushed me and became the catalyst for the transformation that you all see today.